Did you know that behind the dazzling world of R&B, some of the most powerful voices you've ever heard are coming from transgender artists? From Shea Diamond's bold anthems to Sam Smith's soulful vibe and Mykki Blanco's raw storytelling, these stars are breaking barriers with every note they sing. Here are 15 transgender R&B artists you probably didn't know were transgender, but won't forget after this. 1. Shea Diamond. Born as a boy in Little Rock, Arkansas, Shea Diamond entered the world as Shea Diamond. Being raised in a conservative environment, Shea always felt different. Even as a child, there was a quiet but strong awareness that she was meant to be someone else, someone her surroundings didn't understand. By the time she was around 5 or 6, Shea began feeling that internal struggle. She gravitated toward traditionally feminine things, loved singing in high-pitched tones that was gravely criticized as it didn't blend well with the tone expected of a male vocalist. She often found herself feeling more connected to girls than boys. These feelings clashed sharply with how the world saw her, and the more she tried to fit into society's mode, the more uncomfortable and conflicted she became inside. Growing up in Flint, Michigan, in a strict Christian household, expressing herself was risky. There was no room to talk about gender identity or be seen for who she really was. At 14, the pressure became too much, so Shea ran away from home, desperately searching for a space where she could live freely. She eventually became legally emancipated when she was 17, but life didn't magically get easier. Struggling with the dream of finally aligning her outer life with her inner truth, Shea made a difficult and dangerous decision. She committed a robbery to fund her gender affirmation surgery at the age of 20 and ended up being sentenced to a 10-year term in a men's prison. Being a transgender woman in a male prison was nothing short of traumatizing. She faced constant discrimination and had to fight for her dignity every single day. But even in that dark place, Shea's spirit didn't break. Surrounded by other trans women who shared similar pain, she began writing songs that carried her truth, her frustration, and her hope. Her anthem, I Am Her, was born behind bars, becoming a bold declaration of her identity. Once released in 2009, Shea moved to New York and poured her pain and power into music. Her deep, soulful R&B voice and passionate lyrics quickly caught attention. With the help of songwriter Justin Tranter, she released her debut EP, Seen It All, in 2018. Tracks like Don't Shoot and American Pie turned heads, not just for the sound, but for the unapologetic messages they carried. Today, Shea Diamond stands proud, not just as an artist, but as a fierce advocate for the transgender community. Her journey from a misunderstood child to an imprisoned teenager and finally to a celebrated R&B powerhouse proves that no matter how hard the road, living your truth is worth everything. 2. Jackie Shane. Moving on to Jackie Shane, a star who came into this world as a male and was raised in the deeply segregated and conservative South. Jackie knew from a very young age that her soul didn't align with her assigned gender. By the time she was just 4 years old, Jackie was already expressing herself with a grace and softness that challenged the world's expectations of her. From childhood, she was drawn to makeup, glamorous clothing, and the freedom of feminine expression. Something that didn't sit well in a time and place where gender roles were strictly enforced, like Nashville, Tennessee, a place popular for its music, but never for its acceptance of what goes against the norms. But Jackie wasn't confused. She was simply being herself. She later said, I was born Jackie, a simple but powerful reminder that her truth existed from the start, even if the world wasn't ready for it. Her mother supported her unconditionally, and that gave Jackie just enough courage to step into who she was. As a teenager in the 1950s, she started dressing in full makeup, feminine clothing, and owned her identity as a transgender woman at a time when most people didn't even know what that meant. But Nashville wasn't safe, and being visibly trans in the South was dangerous. Jackie eventually fled to Canada to escape violence and prejudice, and there she found her voice in more ways than one. Landing in Toronto in the early 1960s, Jackie exploded onto the rhythm and blues scene like a firework. With her deep, passionate vocals and fearless stage presence, she stood out, not just because of her talent, but because she refused to hide who she was. Dressed in sparkly gowns, full lashes, and heels, Jackie Shane didn't tone herself down for anyone. She sang with emotion, moved with confidence, and won the hearts of fans across the city. Her cover of Any Other Way became a smash hit, not just for its smooth R&B flavor, but for the way Jackie sang it, bold, cheeky, and with a wink that suggested she was living a secret in plain sight. Despite her success, Jackie eventually stepped out of the spotlight in the early 70s. Many say it was the pressure, the judgment, and the emotional toll of living in a society that refused to fully embrace her. For decades, she disappeared from public view, leaving behind a trail of speculation and mystery. But her story didn't end there. In 2017, almost 50 years later, her music was rediscovered, and Jackie was honored with a Grammy-nominated compilation album, Any Other Way. It was a beautiful comeback, even though she never stepped back into the stage lights. Jackie finally got the flowers she deserved, not just as a trailblazing R&B artist, but as one of the first openly transgender performers in music history. She passed away in 2019, but her legacy lives on. Jackie Shane didn't just sing R&B, she lived it, pouring every ounce of her identity, struggle, and joy into her voice. She showed the world that authenticity is power, and that being true to yourself is the most rebellious act of all. 3. Anohani. Before she was Anohani, she was born Anthony Hegarty in the UK and raised in the United States. From a young age, there was always something different stirring beneath the surface. Anohani never quite felt at home in the identity the world handed her as a child. Despite being born a male, she was drawn to softness, to expression, to a feminine energy that didn't align with what others expected of her. But it wasn't until adulthood that Anohani began to fully confront and embrace her true self. A transgender woman with a powerful voice, not just musically, but emotionally and spiritually. Her transition wasn't publicized in flashy headlines or glittering Instagram posts. Instead, it unfolded gently, artistically, and with soul-searching honesty. The journey to womanhood was not easy. For Anohani, it wasn't just about changing how the world saw her, it was about aligning the inner truth with the outer form. Her voice, already ethereal and hauntingly beautiful, became her sanctuary. It became the channel through which she processed pain, identity, love, and resilience. Her family's reaction? Complicated. There was love, but there was also confusion. Like many transgender people, Anohani had to navigate uncomfortable conversations, lingering silence, and moments of emotional distance. At times, the support wasn't immediate. It had to be built, earned, understood, and sometimes it was never fully offered. But Anohani never begged for acceptance. She chose to live free, even if it meant losing pieces of her past. As her identity evolved, so did her music. She stepped out of the shadows of her earlier work and began using her platform to speak boldly about gender, politics, and the environment. She wasn't just singing, she was shifting culture. 4. Kim Petras. Kim Petras was born in 1992 in Cologne, Germany as a male. From a young age, Kim identified as female, expressing her gender identity despite societal challenges. By the age of 16, she had undergone gender confirmation surgery, making headlines as one of the youngest individuals to do so at the time. Kim's passion for music, particularly pop and R&B, drove her to pursue a career in the industry. She began writing and recording songs, eventually moving to Los Angeles to further her career. Her unique sound, blending catchy pop melodies with R&B influences, quickly garnered attention. Despite facing discrimination and skepticism due to her transgender identity, Kim remained determined. She released several successful singles independently, building a dedicated fan base. In 2022, her collaboration with Sam Smith on the song Unholy topped charts globally, marking a significant milestone in her career. Kim's success has made her a trailblazer for transgender artists in the music industry. She continues to use her platform to advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and representation, emphasizing the importance of authenticity and self-love. Today, Kim Petras stands as a symbol of resilience and empowerment, inspiring countless individuals to embrace their identities and pursue their dreams unapologetically. Next up is no other than 5. Sam Smith. What happens when a golden voice meets a soul on a mission to break boundaries? You get Sam Smith, a voice that's filled stadiums and a heart that's dared to stand in truth. He was born as a male in 1992 in London, but over time Sam made it clear that he wasn't your typical British boy. As a child, they gravitated toward makeup, feminine clothes, and high notes that could bring a room to tears. But that freedom came with a price: bullying, isolation, and a deep inner conflict that would follow them into adolescence. Music became Sam's escape. And not just any music, soul-drenched, emotion-heavy R&B. Think Whitney Houston, think Chaka Khan, think vocal runs that don't just sing, but feel. Sam didn't just sing R&B, they breathed it. By 2010, Sam skyrocketed into global stardom with the heartbreaking ballad Stay With Me. Awards followed, fame rolled in, but behind the red carpets and Grammy speeches, Sam was still wrestling with identity. The world knew Sam as a man, but Sam's truth didn't fit neatly into that box. Then came 2019, the turning point. In a bold, vulnerable, and beautiful moment, Sam came out as non-binary, saying, "I'm not male or female. I think I float somewhere in between." And just like that, they asked the world to call them they, them. But this wasn't just a name change. It was a powerful shift, an act of rebellion in an industry that often demands perfection over authenticity. Sam faced backlash, misgendering, and a whole lot of noise from people who didn't understand. But they stood tall, using their massive platform to spotlight non-binary voices and normalize the conversation around gender identity. And guess what? Their music got even deeper. Their lyrics, already rich in emotion, now echoed themes of self-love, acceptance, and the freedom to be exactly who you are. Today, Sam Smith isn't just an R&B artist. They're a pioneer, a game changer. An icon for anyone who's ever felt like they didn't belong in a world of boxes and labels. And they're not done yet. 6. Mila Jam. Let's talk about a queen who owns every room she walks into. Mila Jam. Mila was born as Jamila Adderley in Aurora, Illinois, but grew up with the knowing feeling that she wasn't comfortable under her birth skin. Although she was assigned the male gender at birth, her soul simply wandered and couldn't align with the identity the world gave her. Right from an early age, Mila gravitated toward the glittery music world and had a strong inkling towards anything that allowed her to express the girl inside. But the world didn't make it easy. She was bullied, misunderstood, and constantly pushed to fit into a mold that felt suffocating. But instead of folding, Mila fought to find her voice, and honey, did she find it. She first caught attention with her hilarious drag parodies as Brittany Houston, giving fans a taste of her bold personality. But even in the laughter, Mila knew she wanted more than the stage. She wanted to live in her truth. When she embraced her identity and transitioned, everything changed. Her music became her message. From heartbreak to healing, Mila poured her soul into songs like Faces and Pretty One, celebrating the power and beauty of being unapologetically you. Yes, there were backlashes. Yes, people tried to silence her. But Mila never backed down. She's not just singing, she's leading a revolution in heels and harmony. Today, she's not just a performer, she's a movement, an icon in the transgender community and a rising star in R&B. Mila uses every note, every beat, and every performance to say, you can't dim this light. 7. Dizzy Faye. Now let's vibe with another firecracker of authenticity, Dizzy Faye. She was born in St. Paul, Minnesota. And if you've never heard her voice before, get ready to fall in love. Dizzy grew up surrounded by classical music, jazz, and soul. and you can hear it in every breath she sings. But this girl, she's not here to follow the rules, she's here to break them and build her own world. While not publicly identifying as transgender, Dizzy proudly waves her queer identity like a banner, blending her lived experience with the silky flow of R&B, hip-hop, and funk. Her music? Think spacey, sexy, honest, like walking through a dream where self-love is the law of the land. From the outside, she seems calm and collected, but behind the beat is a young woman who's battled to be heard and seen for who she truly is. Dizzy's journey isn't just about beats and vocals. It's about claiming space in an industry that often wants to box you in. And the best part? She's doing it on her own terms, experimenting with sound, celebrating queerness, and telling Gen Z and beyond, it's okay to be different. It's beautiful to be you. So when you hit play on a Dizzy Faye track, know this. You're not just listening to music. You're witnessing a vibe shift, a gender-bending masterpiece in motion, and a reminder that the future of R&B is fluid, fabulous, and fearlessly free. 8. Ian Isaiah. If there's anyone who wears confidence like skin, it's Ian Isaiah. Born and raised in Brooklyn, Ian was identified as a male at birth, but it was clear they weren't here to follow traditional gender norms. Ian doesn't just blur lines, they erase them with glitter and gospel runs. Known for their daring style and unapologetic persona, Ian embraces a gender-fluid identity, proudly expressing femininity in ways that challenge the mainstream and shake up the R&B space. Growing up in a deeply religious household, Ian's early years were a mix of choir rehearsals and internal conflict. On one hand, they were a church boy with a heavenly voice. On the other hand, they were figuring out how to exist in a world that demanded boxes they cannot perfectly fit into no matter how hard they tried. The struggle is real, right? But so was the glow-up that followed. As they blossomed into the artist we know today, Ian didn't compromise. They showed up with glitter, crop tops, high notes, and all the other packages that made up their existence. Their music? A blend of sensual R&B, spiritual vibes, and futuristic funk that sings of identity, liberation, and love without rules. And they do it all while being proudly queer and gender-fluid. Ian Isaiah isn't just a singer. They're a mood, a revolution, a reminder that divine doesn't have a gender. It has presence. Next up is 9. Big Freedia. Freedia is not just loud, she's legendary. Given the birth name Freddie Ross Jr. in New Orleans, Big Freedia was originally born as a man, but from her earliest years, femininity was simply part of her being. And man, did she own her onion? Absolutely. From hairbrush microphones to diva struts and a love for movement that are out of this world and could keep humanity at a standstill, that's the kind of energy Freedia brought into the world. As she grew older, the clash between identity and society became sharper. Having been raised in a deeply rooted Southern environment, Freedia faced the kind of judgment and side eyes that could have silenced anyone for good. But not this queen. Instead, she bounced her way through the noise. Literally. Big Freedia is widely credited for bringing New Orleans bounce music into the mainstream. But more than the beat, it's her gender identity and unapologetic boldness that make her iconic. Freedia identifies as a gay male who uses she/her pronouns, and she doesn't allow anyone to dictate how she defines herself. That in itself is power. Through loss, challenges, and mislabeling by the media, Big Freedia keeps dancing, keeps pushing, and keeps showing up in spaces where people like her were never invited. Her stage isn't just a performance zone, it's a battleground for representation, and she's winning. If visibility is a war, Big Freedia is a one-woman army who stands as the true definition of who run the world. Girls, as sang by Beyoncé. 10. Shamir Bailey. Famously referred to by her stage name, which is Shamir, she is what we can refer to as a musical force to reckon with who has demonstrated their act of heroism in the eyes of the trans community by prominently refusing to be boxed in either by genre, society, or by gender. Born in 1994 in Las Vegas, Shamir grew up in a music-loving household where creativity was always encouraged. From early on, they knew they didn't quite fit into the world's rigid expectations. Shamir never felt comfortable being labeled or confined to the male identity, and that discomfort became the catalyst for a powerful journey of self-discovery. By their teens, Shamir was writing music and experimenting with sounds that crossed boundaries, mixing R&B, pop, indie rock, and even punk. But it wasn't just the music that stood out. It was Shamir's voice. A hauntingly beautiful counter-tenor that didn't sound male or sound female, but instead sounded true. That voice became both a signature and a statement. This is me, unapologetically. In 2015, Shamir came out publicly as non-binary. They made it clear, I don't identify as gay because I don't identify as male or female. It wasn't a declaration for attention, it was a liberation. A truth that needed to be told regardless of how the world would receive it. That honesty wasn't always welcomed in an industry obsessed with labels. Shamir faced pressure to conform, to pick a side, to present in a way that made others more comfortable. But instead of folding, they pushed back. Through their lyrics, performances, and public presence, Shamir became a bold advocate for self-expression, challenging norms and creating space for others like them. Today, Shamir continues to evolve both musically and personally, inspiring a generation to embrace their full, fluid selves. In a world that constantly demands definitions, Shamir reminds us all, you don't have to fit in to belong. C11. Mykki Blanco. Moving on to the next gender rebel on our list, Mykki Blanco was born Michael David Quattlebaum Jr. in 1986 with an unquenchable fire inside that could burn down a building. One that couldn't quite fit the boxes the world tried to stuff her into. Growing up in North Carolina, she always had an artistic soul, but her inner identity felt like a puzzle. One where all the edges didn't quite line up with the expectations of gender and society. In her early years, Mykki explored self-expression through poetry, fashion, and performance art. But as she matured, that exploration dug deeper. By her late teens and early 20s, she began creating the alter ego Mykki Blanco, a bold, glamorous, high-energy persona that blurred lines and shattered norms. At first, some thought it was just part of the act. But behind the glitter and fierce performances was a very real journey of self-discovery and identity. It wasn't just about wearing heels or lipstick. It was about the deep, sometimes painful process of aligning her outer world with her inner truth. Mykki later came out publicly as transgender and began her transition, not just physically, but emotionally and socially. And while the world watched her shine on stage, she was also fighting silent battles behind the scenes. Self-doubt, backlash, and the heavy weight of being misunderstood. Not everyone was supportive. In fact, some family members struggled to come to terms with her truth. There were moments of tension, silence, and confusion, but with time, understanding began to blossom. Mykki's openness and vulnerability through interviews, performances, and music helped bridge the gap, one honest conversation at a time. Despite the hurdles, Mykki carved her place in the R&B and hip-hop world with raw talent and fierce authenticity. Her music isn't just art, it's an anthem for anyone who's ever felt different, unseen, or voiceless. Her gender identity isn't a side note. It's central to the stories she tells and the freedom she now embodies. Today, Mykki Blanco stands tall, not just as a transgender woman, but as a trailblazer who didn't wait for permission to be who she is. She's not just performing, she's educating, liberating, and inspiring with every beat. 12. Honey Dijon. Born as a male in the south side of Chicago as Pierre Davis, Honey Dijon grew up in a conservative black household, so expressing herself authentically wasn't always easy. But music, especially soulful house, funk, and R&B, became her secret escape, the rhythm where her true self could breathe. As a teen, Honey was drawn to the underground club scenes where identity was fluid and self-expression had no rules. It was in those late-night dance floors and after-hour conversations that she found a community, one that didn't just accept her, but celebrated her uniqueness. And that was where she started blossoming into Honey Dijon. Not just a name, but a declaration. Her transgender journey wasn't a snap decision or a one-day revelation. It was layered, evolving over years of internal searching, tough conversations, and choosing courage over comfort. Honey began transitioning in an era where trans visibility was scarce, especially in the music world, but she didn't let that stop her. If anything, it made her louder, prouder, and more determined to carve out her space. Coming out as transgender was both liberating and terrifying. Some friends pulled away, parts of her family struggled to understand the changes, but Honey stayed grounded in truth. She knew that in order to thrive, she had to live fully, not halfway, not in hiding. Over time, many of those relationships began to heal. Today, her parents are proud of the woman she's become. Although Honey is best known for her killer DJ sets and global fashion collaborations, her R&B roots are undeniable. She's often said that the soul in her mixes, the emotion in every beat, comes from the music she grew up on. Her sound is a fusion of genres, but the heart of it? Pure, unfiltered R&B storytelling. More than just a musician, Honey Dijon has become a symbol of Black trans excellence, of resilience, of what it means to embrace your truth, no matter how loud the world tries to drown you out. She's walked runways, played the world's biggest stages, and still makes time to speak up for the LGBTQ+ community. Honey isn't just remixing music, she's remixing history, proving that authenticity is always in style. Next up is 13, Quay Dash. From the very start, Quay Dash's life read like the intro of a gritty, powerful anthem, raw, real, and unapologetically loud. Born in Alabama but raised in the Bronx, Quay was thrust into a world of chaos early on. The foster care system became her reality, and with it came the instability of constantly shifting environments, battling for identity and survival. By the time she was a teenager, she had already lived lifetimes. At 19, she finally caught her breath. Moving in with her sister brought a semblance of stability, but it also marked the beginning of a deeper inner reckoning. Key had always known who she was inside, even if the world wasn't ready to receive it. When she came out as transgender, it wasn't with a soft whisper. It was with the boldness that now defines her music. Her family, though stunned at first, slowly came around, especially her sister, who stood by her side. Key once hinted that her family's reaction wasn't perfect, but neither was it catastrophic, more of a slow thaw than a burning fallout. The streets of the Bronx didn't offer much room for softness, and the hip-hop world certainly didn't roll out a red carpet. But Quay didn't flinch. Her debut EP, Transphobic, in 2016 wasn't just a musical project. It was a shot fired straight into the silence surrounding trans voices in rap. It was raw, it was messy, and it was necessary. She made sure you couldn't look away. Tracks like Bossed Up weren't just flex anthems either. They were declarations of war against the system that tried to box her out. She rapped not just to entertain, but to liberate. In an industry notorious for its gatekeeping and machismo, Kay carved out her space with bars that bled experience and confidence. But the media wasn't always kind. Early on, interviews often veered more into sensationalizing her gender identity than celebrating her artistry. "They want the story before the sound," she once snapped in frustration. Still, Kay didn't let that stop her. She used every microphone, every beat, every lyric to reclaim the narrative. Collaborations with avant-garde artists like Sophie and Sega Bodega took her music into an exciting, experimental realm. Industrial hip-hop fused with glitchy pop. It was gritty, glamorous, and full of guts, just like her. And she didn't stay quiet about representation either. "I'm black, I'm trans, and I can actually rap," she once said boldly. "Plus, I'm pretty. When you've got beauty, brains, and talent, they can't take that from you." That wasn't arrogance. It was survival, wrapped in swagger. Her identity didn't just affect her career, it defined its purpose. Quay wasn't rapping to become famous. She was rapping because there were thousands of trans girls of color out there who needed to see someone like them win, or at least fight back. Her lyrics became armor, not just for her, but for everyone who felt erased by mainstream music. Today, Quay Dash stands as more than a rapper. She's a rebel, a storyteller, and a living, breathing revolution. Her journey continues to shine through the underground and beyond, daring anyone who dares to doubt her to press play and listen again. 14. Angel Hayes. Angel Hayes was born Rakia Rain Rose Wilson in Detroit, Michigan, and assigned female at birth. But Angel battled inner conflicts about their identity that didn't go in line with what the society tried to place them in. Raised in a strict religious household and surrounded by a conservative mindset, Angel's early years were marked by silence and repression. As they got older, though, that silence gave way to a powerful, unapologetic voice that would come to challenge everything the world thought it knew. Angel identifies as a gender and uses they/them pronouns. Their gender identity isn't about switching from one label to another. It's about completely shattering the idea that gender should define anyone. They've always said, "I don't consider myself of any sex, I consider myself an experience." And that pretty much sums up Angel's approach to life. Coming out as non-binary was not a decision made lightly. It meant pushing back against a music industry that often prioritizes image over authenticity. But Angel was determined to be seen, not just for their talent, but for their truth. And what a talent it is. Angel's music is raw, fearless, and deeply emotional. They've poured their life experiences, trauma, survival, healing, into songs that cut straight to the soul. When Angel opened up about being a survivor of sexual abuse and battling depression, PTSD, and eating disorders, it wasn't for shock value. It was about liberation, theirs and others. Music became both weapon and refuge, a way to make sense of chaos and to uplift others navigating similar battles. Their family initially struggled with their identity. The conservative values they were raised under didn't leave much room for gender fluidity. But over time, as Angel kept showing up in their truth, relationships began to evolve. Some family members embraced them with open arms, others fell away. Angel chose peace over approval and kept moving forward. Today, Angel Hayes isn't just an artist. They're a movement, a voice that defies binaries, a beacon for those told they were too much or not enough. Their music doesn't just entertain, it liberates. And in a world so thirsty for truth, Angel serves it with fire and freedom. 15. Ombre. Ombre is more than a name. She's a whole mood. A stunning blend of grace, edge, and self-awareness, Ombre's story is one of transformation, both inside and out. Born and raised with a passion for music and self-expression, she knew early on that she was different. The mirror didn't reflect who she truly was, and the world's expectations felt suffocating. Originally referred to as a male, Ombre grew up feeling like her true self was trapped beneath layers of fear and misunderstanding. But she held on to a quiet knowing. The spark of identity never died. It only waited for the right time to burst into flames. That moment came when Ombre decided she couldn't live as anyone other than who she truly was. A beautiful trans woman with a voice and vision that couldn't be ignored. Coming out wasn't easy. Her family's reaction was a mix of confusion, fear, and eventual acceptance. There were tense conversations and painful silences, but there was also healing. Over time, love found its way through the cracks, and many of her loved ones began to understand that Ombre's transition was not a phase. It was a coming home. Some relationships grew stronger, others were left behind. but Ombre stayed rooted in self-love, choosing her peace over approval. Her transition didn't just change how the world saw her, it transformed how she saw herself. Her creativity deepened, her voice matured, and her sense of purpose sharpened. She started using her platform to advocate for trans visibility, sharing her story openly and honestly through social media and music. With every post, every lyric, every beat, she reminds her followers that being trans is powerful, beautiful, and valid. Ombre's energy is magnetic. She's the girl who walks into a room and turns heads, not because she's loud, but because she's real. She doesn't ask for acceptance. She commands it by simply existing in her truth. Today, Ombre stands tall, not just as an artist, but as a trailblazer. She's proof that authenticity is the most beautiful thing you can wear. And in a world still catching up, she's already 10 steps ahead, dancing boldly in her own light. To uncover more intriguing stories among Hollywood celebrities, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.